I very strongly dislike former President Donald Trump, but I believe that he deserves to have a voice on social media. That's because I believe that social media should be considered a public good. Social media serves hundreds of millions of Americans as a place of public debate and discourse, and those platforms are the platform for our marketplace of ideas. The First Amendment should be protected on those social media platforms, but unfortunately, those private companies are not subject to First Amendment regulations curbing the marketplace of ideas. First, let's get some background to understand what exactly public goods are and how they serve the American people. A public good is a service or product that is provided without profit or benefit for the good of society. And then also, I'm going to talk frequently in my speech about the marketplace of ideas. So I want to just first give it a definition of what that is. The marketplace of ideas is a venue of discussion that is essential to American democracy and politics. And in my opinion, it is the bedrock, along with the freedom of the press, the bedrock of an informed citizenry. And when I talk about social media, I primarily mean gigantic social media companies like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, these gigantic multi-billion-dollar companies. So let's explore how these companies serve a public good. Like I said, social media serves hundreds of millions of Americans as a place of public debate and discourse. According to a 2021 Pew Research Center poll, 86% of Americans get their political news from their digital devices. And a majority of that news comes from not directly from news source apps, but from social media like Twitter and Instagram. Additionally, and these are worldwide statistics, so this isn't specifically American, but many Americans are factored into this. Facebook has over 2.8 billion users. Instagram has over 1 billion users, and Twitter has over 192 million people on its company and on its platform. If you go into the comments of any tweet from a news source, whether it's the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Politico, you will see debate. Whether that debate is productive or unproductive, or smart or silly or dumb, is not important. The important part is that there's debate. These companies hold so much power over public debate, and they are how so many people in our country today are informed, and it's how a majority of people engage in political discourse and the marketplace of ideas. And these pillars of American freedom are in most cases protected by the First Amendment, and they should be protected on social media. The First Amendment protects political speech. So let me give an example of another politician that I'm not fond of. Texas Senator Ted Cruz recently tweeted that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were the sole creators of the current border crisis going on at the southern border. I disagree completely, but the Constitution protects my right to disagree and Cruz's right to say that. That type of disagreement is needed for a fair, participatory democracy. Like I said in the beginning, it is needed for citizens to be informed. That debate is so important. Despotic regimes all over the world do not allow that type of free speech, do not allow people to dissent, do not allow people to disagree, at least in public. And that type of disagreement is good. And for me to engage with people who do support Senator Cruz and who do think that Democrats and the White House and the current administration are responsible for the border crisis, that discussion, whether again it's productive or unproductive, just the venue for that discussion is incredibly important. However, these protections are unfortunately not protected on social media companies. Since social media companies are private companies, First Amendment regulations do not apply to these social media companies. And that fact, curbs the marketplace of ideas. Like I talked about in the beginning, the banning of Donald Trump. That curbed the discussion and political speech of the moment. It was a complete deplatforming, and former President Trump has yet to return to any of those social media platforms. And there's no oversight over these decisions. These decisions are made unilaterally by the executives and the workers at these companies. There's no public oversight over the responsibility of who makes those decisions, what goes into those decision makings, and how those decisions are made. It's a dangerous precedent to set. That is such a scary lack of oversight over such a significant decision and such significant decisions. The disruption of political conversations is a disruption of the democratic political process. And these are my arguments, but not everybody agrees. And a common theme that you'll hear, something that you'll hear commonly, is that there's other options for social media platforms. People can go to all types of social media platforms, so these private companies should be allowed to compete in the private marketplace without government interference. Anyone who thinks this has a misguided understanding of the size and power of these companies. There's no true competition when it comes to social media platforms. Companies like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram have the market completely cornered, and there is no competition, and there's no other place for people to go to have those political conversations in a productive manner with millions and millions and millions of other Americans. And that's not the only complaint. Other people argue that government regulation of these platforms would be draconian and dangerous. Of course, this is quite an ironic argument. The regulation of these platforms as a public good would inevitably make them more democratic instead of having the unilateral decisions that we talked about earlier from private in the private marketplace. The private model of decision making is draconian, not the democratic regulation and oversight of private companies. Of course, this is just an argument for why social media, another argument for why social media should be considered a public good and regulated by the federal government. Social media should be considered a public good. It has a stranglehold on our marketplace of idea, and it's a vital mechanism in our democracy. We must protect the freedom of speech on these platforms. That's why every time I've asked about my opinion about the decision of Twitter and other companies to deplatform Donald Trump, I will go to bat for former President Trump's right to be wrong. It's how our democracy works. And to ensure that that is continued and our marketplace of ideas can flourish, we need to consider social media a public good so that we can democratically regulate it.